Francisco Bravo Cabrera, also known as Bodo Vespaciano, is an artist, a poet, and a graduate of Miami's Florida International University. He has been engaged in the art world since 1998, developing his JaZzArt and his Surreal-Expressionism. He has exhibited in cities such as New York, Miami, Istanbul, Barcelona, Zaragoza, and Valencia. His compositions are made up of musical instruments and bodies that exist in his worlds of jazz and fantasy. His endeavor is to create paintings that communicate and transmit a message of hope, peace, and togetherness. Francisco has donated the illustrations and the cover art for the book One Petal at a Time by Joni Caggiano, knowing full well that art and poetry are two forms of the same creative urge that comes from the soul and enrich our spirit. Hi, this is Lisa Tomei Zonnevel from Prolific Pulse Press, and I have with me today Francisco Bravo Cabrera. And you are where, Francisco? Where are you located right now?
Hi, Lisa. I am in Spain, in the city of Valencia.
Is that where you mostly reside?
That is where I 100% reside.
100% can't beat that.
Yes, definitely. We're here on the Mediterranean coast. It's very nice, and it's a lovely place, really.
Oh, yes, I think that would be a beautiful place to be. Is it nice and warm there now?
I guess in Fahrenheit, it's about 40 degrees.
Oh, that's not too bad. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, and our temperatures range right now between about 50 and 60. And the sun is trying to shine a little bit today, but not greatly. But we're pretty grateful for when we do get it. So
Yeah. No,
but
we're pretty lucky with the weather here.
good. I'm happy to have you on here today. I am so taken by the artwork that is going to be in Joni Caggiano's book, One Petal at a Time. I just was thrilled to see it and to be able to have it on the front cover as well. We have it in each section of the book and then on the front cover, and it's just amazing. When I saw it initially, I was hoping that she would say that it was going to be on the front cover of the book, because that would have been my number one choice. So I'm just pretty tickled pink that that's happened. Wonderful
Well,
work. Wonderful.
thank you so much. I'm super excited about the book and being a part of it. Joni is a wonderful friend, a dear friend, and a beautiful writer. I mean, her poetry, I've been reading it since 2019, I think. And I really fell in love with her work, and it was very easy to be inspired to create something visually that would attempt or hope to reflect some of the words and some of the emotions that she conjures up in the images. And when she talked to me about this idea, I loved it from the beginning, and I really was. I really feel honored to be a part of it, to be a part of this book for sure, and to be a part of the. I mean, to have the image be in the cover, it's amazing. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. It really it sends a message about what the book is about. I think it's very approachable. I think, it will really attract people because it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm a little bit of an artist myself, but I can't even hold a candle to what you do. You're just so excellent.
Thank
What media did you use for that?
Well, for that was it's ink on what we call artist papers. It's a high quality type of paper, and it's just ink. It's India ink.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. It's hard for me to get a command of India ink without making a big mess out of it. So mine would be like ink blots everywhere. But that's
Yes, it
wonderful.
does. It is tricky in that sense. You have to be very careful. And but
Very.
during my career, I spent close to 6 years only doing ink and graphite, and just ink in itself, types of drawings every day. And I sort of fine-tuned my hand and abilities to not have those splotches, and because you have to be very careful how much you dip into that ink so that it won't do that, so that your line will be straight and even and not splotchy. Yes.
Ink is not very forgiving.
Well, it's not forgiving at all. No.
Not at all. Now, I saw on your website, you have some really beautiful pieces on there, and I also saw that you write some poetry.
Yes, I've always from the very beginning, I always loved to write. I mean, my definition of myself is a poet that paints and writes. And also, I used to create a lot of music, but I don't do that much anymore. But I always thought of it as part of my poetry, in one way or another, expressed in a different way. Because for me, for example, the most ideal or the most beautiful way to express something is in a song, because it has all the elements. There's the poetry, and there's the music that sort of surrounds it and sends it, and it is appealing to the ears, and that's what you want. You want people to recognize it and to feel it, to know it. So I've always worked in that manner. And when I switched to visual, which was back 1996 or so, I tried to approach it in the same manner, and that's always been my goal with every painting, is to have the philosophy and the idea that I want to transmit through the painting in a poetic form, but visually, naturally. It has to capture your eye somehow, with the best and most profound and strongest way to do it is with color, naturally, because colors are emotion in themselves. So it captures your own emotion, and you react to it as a spectator, as the observer of the piece. So that's how I've always worked. And um, as the years went on and things progressed in my life and things like that, I sort of left the writing itself on the side as I developed more and worked more with the visual aspect of it, with the paintings and drawings. And like I said, for a time, I just simply stopped painting. I just started drawing. I wanted to. This was back 2008 or something like that. It's something that all artists need to have. You need to have a lot of work. You can't just have one or two things. You have to have hundreds.
Oh, sure.
You have to have a large inventory. And so lately, I've been dedicating a lot of time to my poetry, and uh, I really love it. I mean, it's a wonderful way to express, and it's concise. It's direct,
Mhm.
and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, you had mentioned about music. What type of music did you play? You said you used to play a little more music.
Oh, I learned to speak English listening and learning the songs of the Beatles, and would learn them. I convinced my parents to get me a guitar when I must have been, I don't know, 10 years old, 11, sometime around that. And I started learning them. And I would get there was no YouTube, no no videos to teach you anything. But in those days, I remember they were actually 45 RPM records that would teach you how to play the chords and things. I remember I had some of those, and I used to buy the charts and learn the chord structures, and taught myself how to play the guitar. And since I was learning songs, I started saying, well, if they can write their own songs, I can try to do that too. And learning from their songs, I began to write my own songs. So it was mainly that kind of music. So rock. I grew up in the rock age, so I loved it, and I still love it. So yeah, that's how I got into the music. And as a teenager, I was in a bunch of bands and things like that, around with friends, garage bands, sort of. But it was something that I've always loved to do, and I still do it. I still keep my guitar around. I haven't played it in years now, but I always have one handy. Yeah.
My brother learned to play the guitar and through the record system too. And he had the Ventures album he used to play along with to practice, so he could kind of keep up with them. And so he became quite good at it too. I don't know how much he plays now, but yeah, just kind of self-taught through the records, listening to picking up that certain tone and that in little charts that he had. So
it's a lot easier now because there are tutorials and all sorts of things that could. But in those days, we had to look it up ourselves. We had to find the books or magazines or charts that they used to sell at the record stores. I remember they used to sell these books with the songs of Simon and Garfunkel or whatever, and I would buy those and learn the chords. And I never really wanted to learn how to play lead guitar. To me, rhythm was good enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, they used to have a magazine back in the day called Song Hits, and they had the different songs each month that had the chords that you could play along with. And I was dabbling with the guitar then I learned some basic chords and learned how to sort of play some of that music. But it was kind of a fun challenge. I enjoyed it. But yeah, everything was on paper or by ear.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
we were old enough to appreciate those things.
Yeah. Yeah, we really had to look for it. You really had to want it. That was the only way we did it. It was fine.
So where did the jazz influence come from? I had noticed that you've had some of the jazz influence with your work. I certainly see that in your art with Joni's art. Where did that influence come from?
I was doing it was in early 1997. I was doing a show in when I lived in Miami, Florida. I was doing a benefit show with a band that I had gotten together, and we were all volunteers. We were one guy had a studio, and he volunteered his studio, and I got musicians. It was a fundraiser for I think it was for an AIDS clinic that needed help or something like that, and we decided to volunteer. And well, anyways, what happened was that we were making music. I was writing the music for the show, and we were working. And one of the guys was from the University of Miami. He was a jazz player. He was a jazz major, and he played the saxophone and the flute. And every day while we were at rehearsal, he would always come in with a lot of improvs and a lot of things. And I would ask him, where'd you get that idea? And you should listen to Coltrane. You should listen. And I said, wow, I never, I followed the rock, rock music, and we hated jazz. So I said, well, maybe I should. I started listening to it, and that was it. It was from one day to the next, I became a jazz fan. And it's since that year, since 1997, it's been growing. And that's where my love of jazz comes from, because I find that it's the improvisational aspect of it is just exactly what I do with the steps I take to create my artwork.
Yes.
Start with an idea and allow it to transform itself through improvisation, which is not intuition. It's an improvisations are all based upon some structure.
Right.
So I said, the three principles of jazz is improvisation, the composer as the artist, and you have to have what they call swing, which is the rhythm. Yeah. So those three things I try to incorporate into my visual art, and I've always followed that pattern. That's why I always called it JaZzArt. Mm-hmm. And my series of JaZzArt, either drawings or paintings, are all created following those three principles.
I'm going to share the screen, because you have your really cool website, and it's JaZzArt on Valencia. And you can see on here your beautiful print here. Well, I love that. And some of the more details about it. And you have some wonderful videos. I started looking at a little bit. But it's a really nicely done website.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like this. And then I clicked on that, and it took me to your poem, which also gives me the option to translate it into English. But I just, that's a wonderful way to illustrate, you have your beautiful art and then your poem to illustrate it. But very well done.
Thank you.
Would you like to share some of your poetry with us today? I might be putting you on the spot, so if you're not prepared, that's fine.
Well, it's not that I'm not prepared. It's I don't memorize my work, so I would have to read it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what most people do. Yeah.
Okay. I have a poem here that is was published in Spill Words last year, and it's called "The Message Becomes Tomorrow." Okay. And it says this: I believe there is justice in love, and though they must be searched for, you can find them in the heart and in the actions of the one and of the many. There is justice, there is love, and they're there. I will join the brave, courageous one who's blind to hatred, and lift him high because no enemy can touch him, and no rebel can steal his soul. For him and for me, death is no worry. Who can live without death? No one can save themselves from the fall or avoid the pit that one day will open wide for us all. I think of my first loves. Who cares about what has happened, what has passed, or what has become of anything? Everything becomes again, happens again, and will pass once more. Continuous motion, over and over, because our life is a circle, and within it there are cycles that never give way to change. Nothing changes. All rivers flow to the sea, and the sea never fills up. So why fret the things of life when we too, like everything, will end and begin again? Everything must pass because nothing changes. I've heard the magic message that the day whispers to another day, and that the night sings to another night. Speech without words, music without sounds, a song of magic and love sung without voices, reaching to the ends of the earth, and the message becomes tomorrow.
Wow.
That's it.
Very thought-provoking, beautiful poem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You do a lot of introspection of the life and how people interact with one another.
Yes, this poem actually was partially inspired from the book of Isaiah, from the Old Testament of the Bible. Some of the images were inspired by, I don't remember the chapter or the verses or something like that, but I remember reading that book and really feeling that there's a lot there to write about itself. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to read it.
Do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Well,
I heard you mention that Kit was on Spillwords. Is that one of the platforms where you do send a lot of your work?
I send, yes, not a lot, but I would imagine every 3 or 4 months, I do send something to them. And actually, last year, my poem in Spanish, a mis naranjas verdes, which means to my green oranges, because Valencia is the city of oranges. We have orange trees all over the streets, and at this time of the year, they're already orange, but they start off, you see them, well, they're green, maybe in late October, beginning of November. So I had written one, but it's in Spanish, and it actually won the best foreign or international publication last year.
Wonderful.
Yeah, last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw it, when they gave me the message. But it was dedicated precisely to that, to the changing of the of the nature here, which is very obvious in seen in our oranges, which the orange trees grow in most of the streets. So you see a lot of oranges. I mean, they're not edible oranges; they're sour oranges, which we actually sell to make marmalade.
Okay.
At the end of the season, they shake all the trees and they send it. Most of them are sold to the UK.
Oh,
Yeah, so
that's interesting. I learned a new fact today. I love
mhm.
marmalade.
Yes. Well, maybe if you eat some orange marmalade, maybe it comes from some of our oranges.
Yeah, well, that's a
Uh,
cool
because
idea.
we have must be millions of them, in our streets. But I had I had submitted another poem. It was called Shadows. It's called Shadows of New York, and this one also won publication of the month. I think it was April or May of last year.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and this one says, if I may read it.
Yes, please.
One day I sat and listened to the choirs of Babel. It took me back to when I painted shadows in New York, which cast skyscrapers high above your garden. And I wondered if an island in the seas of nowhere would have served as a shelter if our ship should sink. Did a siren with her song lead you so far away from home? And has that made you forget me? Have you removed the old tattoos? Did you forget the sailing trips? Was it because Manhattan's winds destroyed your jib? Do you still lie when you convince the juries of your peers that guilty men regret the fear that they imposed upon their victims in the night? Whatever happened to those days when you would ride upon the leaves that floated by so carelessly? Whatever happened? Now, as I step upon the skies of all these buildings you call home, I see the footsteps that your smile has left behind. I don't see those orangutans that craved the punishment you gave to every soul that came to smell, to gaze, to eat. Some came to dwell upon your castle in the clouds, and now I have my doubts. So now It's me that can't believe that there are buildings in New York that cast their shadows over your green oaks and pines. It's me now who can't bear to hear the soulful choir of the rabble, the tearful voices that in Babel sang their praise. And I'll be waiting for the sun of Indian summers in the rain, because white skin rises like the dawn and fears the pain. And there's no islands in the sea to shelter us from coming storms. No sirens ever grace these sidewalks where only lie forgotten drunks and old tattoos of sailing days begin to slowly fade away. And all your lies corrupted, justice, and all the leaves have blown away. So it's best if we just sit and drink this gin with lemonade beneath the shadow of the statue of that woman on the bay and think we've reached the lonely shores of home where no one listens to the screams of those that slowly die of too much love, scratching the surface far from home beneath the shadows of the green trees of New York.
That's, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's really nice. You know, in an anthology that we did a couple years ago, there was a Spanish speaking who spoke Spanish primarily as their natural language, submitted a poem for that. And I asked them, can we do it in both Spanish and English? And so they did produce it in both ways. And I put both of them in the anthology. I thought, why not? You know, why not be innovative?
Yes, definitely. That's true.
Yeah. So
yes, I tried to.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, just to conclude that thought, I always try to balance my writing English and Spanish, but just some things they're just natural to that language, and when you translate it, you have to either write something different to give that same to create that same emotion, the same response, because literal translations sometimes just don't work.
No, they don't. No, they don't. You have to carve them around differently. That's for sure.
Yes. I love writing in English because everything sounds so much nicer in English. So it's a nice sounding language. I love, and it's very easy. It's a very practical language, so it's very easy to express a lot of thoughts in many diverse ways. So I love to write in English as well, but in Spanish it's a different. It's my native tongue, and it's things come out differently. But I try to balance it on both languages, and our own language here in Valencia, which we have a language of our own here. Sure. So 3 languages.
Yeah. Most there's a lot of people don't realize that everybody kind of creates their own local language, compared to the basic language, and then there's the local slang or terminology that you develop too in your different communities, different city states, however you have it set up there. So that's wonderful.
Yes.
Do you plan to publish your own poetry book one day?
I am, yes, actually, that's one of the things that I've been, every year I start off with that thought, and so it's been growing. My preparation for that is slowly growing. It's not there yet, but it's on the way. It's en route, and that's
one
definitely
piece at a time. One piece at a time. And as you develop something, write something, you think this would be good to be published in a book, start putting it together, and then before you know it, you have a manuscript. So
exactly, that's what I've been doing little by little throughout the last at least the last 5 years now. So, but and it's not that I'm one of these perfectionists. Like I remember a friend of mine said, "Well, don't let good or don't let perfect be the enemy of good." But you want to always put forth your best. The best you can do.
I understand that. That's one of the disciplines that I've had to work with my art, because I never was satisfied with anything that I've done, because it's never feels complete to me. I can complete a poem and then I can say it's done. And I always have the expression, stick a fork in it, it's done. I'm not going and
Mm.
touch that poem again. When it comes to my art, it's like a whole different story. And so I had to actually set a timer, and just say, I'm going to start this by the timer, and when the timer's done, it's
Hmm.
done.
Okay.
And that helped me discipline myself
Hmm.
with my art and be able to call something finished and
Hmm.
not go back and start messing with it.
Oh,
It
no,
was
no, I think
hard.
that's a wonderful way to, that's a very, it's, even though it's an external thing, because it's an alarm clock, it works.
Yeah, it works.
Works. That works. Anything that, it's just like in the theater, if you're an actor trying to develop a role and you develop anger, you can't, maybe if you can't bring it forth from within, you start doing external things that you would do, that that you would do if you're angry, and it brings it out. So,
Exactly.
but what I do with my painting is, my paintings are, I let them talk to me. They tell me, not one more brushstroke. If you do that, it'll ruin the whole thing. So I know that it's finished.
There you
But
go.
yes.
I had that what kind of relationship with poetry. You know,
Mhm.
it can talk to me, says, this is what you need to say, and this is where you need to stop. You know,
Yes.
it's a,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We each have our own. Everybody has their own way of achieving something, and
Mhm.
that's definitely a good one. Yes. But
If
do you
someone were
paint?
to want to purchase your artwork, where would they go?
I have a dealer, an agent,
Mhm.
that handles all of that. And what I usually do is I refer them to her,
Mhm.
um, through her, well, through her email. I usually post that. And what we do is that, when I say we, I say me and her as a team working to do this. I gave up on galleries long ago.
Mhm.
Ever since the internet, it's a better gallery. It's worldwide, and it's worked for us
Mhm.
tremendously. Um, the exposure is much bigger, and the sales are much better now. Everything is bought and sold online,
Yeah,
anyways.
exactly.
So at first I thought, well, who's going to buy a painting online? I mean, you want to see it up close. You want to, not touch it, but you want to be able to see every. So you do that. We photograph every angle of it
Mhm.
in good, high quality photos, and you publish them. We found that Instagram is the best, one of the best platforms for online sales. And here in Europe, we have lots of online auction houses as
That's
well,
nice.
that actually work all over the world. We've had collectors from the United States, and even from as far away as Taiwan, um, through some of those European based auction houses. Of course, it's not Sotheby's or Christie's,
Mhm.
but that's how I sell my work.
Right.
I paint to sell naturally.
Cool.
So the help of my with my agent, manager, sometimes, um, we she has a good following through the Instagram page that we use. It's a professional page just meant for that,
Mhm.
and that's how it's done. And of course, through my WordPress, I usually put links and things like that, in there too. Um, and it's, so far it's worked fantastic. And
Yeah, it's very well designed, it's easy to follow through. So if someone's interested, it's really easy to see what you have out there.
yes,
Beautiful.
if someone's interested, I rarely do commissions, even though I've done them.
Hmm.
Um, but um, but I usually if somebody, I had a collector right here in Valencia a few years ago, commissioned me for a series of paintings that they wanted to tell the story of their life, because they had moved from several countries when they fled the Soviet Union back in 1980 something, and they had lived in several different places over a 30-year span of time, and they wanted their life to be documented visually, and they commissioned me for it. And the first thing I told them is, I said, I think the project sounds fantastic, and I love the idea. However, this is my style of painting. And I showed them all what I do. And I said, and I am not going to deviate from my style.
Right.
I will do it my style. And if you like it, I'll show you, maquettes or rough drafts or sketches along the way. And you can approve or disapprove. I still like the project, and I'll probably do it anyways. But it's in my style of painting. I'm not going to turn into a classical painter all of a sudden, or an impressionist, because that's just not what I do, and I don't want. Not that I cannot do it, but I don't want that to reflect me.
Exactly.
I have to. I like to continue the way that I do it, which identifies my work. And they loved the idea, and it came out wonderful. I was, I was very happy with it, and they were too. So those are the things that I do sometimes if I get a request, and I make that caveat. I'll gladly do it, but it has to be in my style. And
totally understandable. Absolutely. You have to honor yourself and your work. Well, Francisco, it's been wonderful to talk to you. I feel like I've known you forever. We just met. Makes me
I
want
do
to go
too.
over there and take a look at all your art.
Well, you're welcome to do so. Anytime you visit Spain, if you do, you make sure to visit Valencia.
Okay.
Plus, it's a city that you would love. It's a wonderful Mediterranean city.
When I retire,
Okay,
whenever that's going to be.
that's what I say.
I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
Well, thank
Well,
you so much for coming
thank
on
you,
here.
thank you.
It's been a
It's been
pleasure.
very nice. I really appreciate it, and I also feel the same way. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Joni told me a lot of very nice things about you, so I was looking forward to it as well. And everything she said was perfect, was right,
Thank
exactly.
you. Thank you.
Yes.